Most investment fraud does not start out as investment fraud. That's what makes Ponzi schemes so difficult to uncover. Everything, usually goes okay. Now, in my case, it was the first week. It did start out kind of as a Ponzi scheme, but everything else about me was legitimate. There was no other issues there. So it comes to the point where about a year and a half later or so, I started, the fund starts dwindling down, and I need some additional cash. And I was really at the time a sales introvert and didn't really want to go back to my clients, investors, and ask them for more money. So I basically, put my net worth into it. I got a home equity line of credit. I, cashed in my 401k and yada, yada, yada. My whole net worth went into there. That was, stage two.
So just to clarify real quick. So you didn't actually, when you think of Ponzi scheme, a lot of times you think of like bringing new money in and paying that out. That's not what you were doing. You were actually putting your own money in. Is that right?
Well, at that time, I had not taken any additional money in.
Okay. Got it.
I just put my own money in.
Okay.
So now we're in stage two. So basically, I'm subsidizing the losses with my personal net worth and did not disclose that to my investors, which is also an SEC violation. Okay. So that went on for about another year. So now we're about that 3-year mark. And up to this point, although I'm committing fraud, it's civil. Correct. I haven't stolen any money. Right. It's that point. And about that 3-year mark, I probably have 25,000 or so in my, in the fund account. I'm like, well, I've got to sit everybody down. What am I going to do? Somebody's probably going to go to the, to the authorities. Yeah. And just kind of out of nowhere, I get a call from an investor who was a referral from one of my quote unquote happy investors. And he wrote a check for $500,000, which was by far my largest client. I'm thinking, well, that's great. Number one, because I can maybe bring in, a quant analyst or bring in somebody else to help me with my models, but also too, I need money to live on because I was just completely tapped.
Sure.
So it was just a great opportunity to push forward because really in my 8 years, there was really never more than a couple days, Buck, where I didn't think I could make the money back.
Right.
I had traded for a long time. I mean, I had really been trading futures since high school. Right. So I never thought that there was an issue that I couldn't make the money back.
Right.
And so really, this is the turning point, and I didn't, probably know it as clear as I do now. I mean, that was when the lexicon changed from civil to criminal, right? And I knew that it was wrong, that I'd be taking money, but I justified it because I can make this money back. And, of course, from year 3 to year 8, I never made it back, and that's really where the embezzlement came from.
So I think what you're, I guess the moral of the story here is a lot of times the investment fraud, Ponzi schemes like these don't start out with the intent of that. I think even with Bernie Madoff, I don't think he intended for it to be that way initially. And it just became that because it was sort of we'll just fudge a little bit here, fudge a little bit there. And the next thing you know, it just becomes this gigantic problem. Is that pretty fair? Is that most of the time that's the way it works?
So I would say probably 70% or so, maybe 75% of all investment fraud / Ponzi schemes do not start out that way. And that's what makes them so difficult to uncover, is because when a lot of people get into the Ponzi schemes, especially at an early stage, there is no fraud going on. Right. Yeah. So it's very difficult. So maybe the fraud starts 6 months later or a year later or 3 years later. A catalyst occurs, right? The market goes the wrong way. Real estate values go down. Technology for a new product doesn't work.
Right.
One of your sales team doesn't get that government contract that it needs, right? Something happens. So of course, embezzlement doesn't start from day one. It's the operator who is trying to fudge the numbers, create false statements to buy more time. And that's where it starts. Now, eventually it gets into embezzlement. In cases, it's one of two. In my cases, it was both number one, to live on some of that money because I threw my net worth into there, but also to show success. Not so much a lavish lifestyle, but success. That yes, I am making money. I am successful. I am doing what I say that I'm doing. Right. And here's proof: the BMW and the travel and the yada yada yada. Right.
Sure.
So that's where that comes in. But embezzlement usually does not start from day one. I mean, very few people wake up. I'm sorry, Buck. One morning and say, you know what? I want to steal 10, 20, 30, $50 million, go and, open a bank account and, go to Wix, get a website and, go online and, find a document or documents to forge and stamp their name on it and go out and raise money. And as soon as they get that phone call from the SEC or knock on the door, they're in the back door, you're fueling up the corporate jet to go to Brazil, right? So that doesn't usually happen that often.